Masculine men do not chase. They understand that to chase is to surrender their power, to abandon the essence of their strength, and to move against the very foundation of their being. The masculine spirit does not run after what slips away. It stands firm, unshaken, and grounded. For a man rooted in his masculinity, there is no desperation, no frantic pursuit, no scrambling to hold on. There is only a calm recognition of truth. If something is meant to stay, it stays. If it chooses to go, it is no longer aligned, and therefore it must be released. This release is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the refusal to step out of one's frame. It is the awareness that chasing what is running away diminishes presence, dilutes respect, and destroys the natural polarity of attraction. Masculine men do not beg for what does not want to remain. They disappear, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of the highest form of self-respect. They know that their value is not proven through pursuit. Their worth is not measured by how fast they can run after someone, or how much energy they can spend trying to convince another of their greatness. Their value is already established within themselves, and nothing external has the power to add or subtract from it. Chasing is rooted in lack. It is a silent confession that says, "I am not enough on my own, I need you to validate me." But masculine men refuse to carry that energy. They recognize that the moment they chase, they hand over their power, and when a man hands over his power, he loses the respect of others and, more importantly, the respect of himself. Masculine men do not live from lack, they live from abundance, an abundance of self-worth, self-control, and self-mastery. There is an undeniable magnetism in the man who does not chase. His silence speaks louder than words. His absence carries more weight than any desperate presence ever could. When he disappears, it is not because he has lost, it is because he has chosen. Chosen not to lower himself to pursuit. Chosen not to waste time convincing what has already decided to leave. Chosen to honor his own path rather than chase down a path that is no longer his. The world respects a man who respects himself. The world bends to the one who refuses to bend for what is fleeting. Masculine men understand that life is not about clinging, it is about alignment. Whatever resists, whatever runs, whatever rejects, is not part of that alignment. And so the masculine does not force it, he does not beg for it, he does not chase it. He allows it to go, and in allowing it, he remains unshaken. This is not indifference, it is not coldness, it is power. It is knowing that dignity is worth more than temporary affection. It is knowing that chasing devalues not only the man but also the very thing he is chasing, for anything that must be chased is already signaling its disinterest, its unwillingness to stay. A masculine man reads that signal clearly, and instead of fighting against it, he honors it with silence. That silence is not empty. It is full of meaning, full of presence, full of strength. And so the principle stands: masculine men do not chase. They disappear. They understand that disappearance is not defeat, but declaration. It declares, "I know who I am. I do not need to run after what does not recognize my value. My energy is not for sale. My worth is not in question. My life moves forward, with or without you." The hook is simple yet undeniable. A man who chases loses himself. A man who disappears finds himself. One is the path of weakness, the other the path of power. Masculine men have chosen the latter. They never chase. They disappear. The essence of masculinity is not found in pursuit, but in presence. Masculinity is not frantic, it is not desperate, and it is not reactive. At its core, masculinity is calm, rooted, and unshakable. It does not chase validation, it radiates it. It does not beg for recognition, it embodies it. Masculinity does not move to prove, it moves to express. A man deeply grounded in his essence does not spend his life running after approval, because approval has already been established in the way he carries himself, in the way he thinks, and in the way he acts. To understand masculinity, one must understand energy. The masculine is the foundation, the anchor, the stillness in the storm. It is the unmovable mountain that remains even when winds rage and waters rise. This is why the masculine cannot chase, because the act of chasing contradicts its nature. The moment a man chases, he steps out of his frame. He leaves the ground where his strength resides and enters the chaos where he is no longer in control. Masculinity loses its power when it abandons its stability. This is why masculine men never chase what slips away. They know that by running they become something they are not meant to be, scattered, unsettled, ungrounded. Chasing is the energy of uncertainty. It is the signal of a man disconnected from himself, grasping for something external to complete him. But the masculine essence requires no completion. It is already whole. It is already enough. Masculinity is not about seeking, it is about being. It is not about pursuit, it is about embodiment. Every man must understand this distinction. Chasing is not masculine. Pursuit and leadership are not the same as chasing. To lead is to move forward with clarity and purpose. To chase is to run behind with desperation and fear. Leadership creates respect. Chasing creates pity. Masculine men live in leadership. They lead their lives, they lead their choices, they lead their paths. They do not wait to be chosen, they choose themselves first. When a masculine man enters a space, his presence is felt. He does not need to demand attention, because his very energy commands it. That is the true power of masculinity. It does not need to announce itself, it simply is. It radiates a quiet confidence that cannot be faked, a strength that cannot be forced. This is why masculine men do not chase, because they know that to chase would be to deny this essence, to silence this energy, to step out of the natural order that gives them their strength. Masculinity is also discipline. It is self-control. It is the refusal to allow external desires to pull one away from internal truth. The man who chases is the man who has lost discipline, who has allowed his impulses to override his purpose. Masculine men know that purpose must always come first. They are builders, creators, protectors. Their energy is meant to move forward, not to circle around something that does not belong to them. A man who understands his essence never wastes his life running after what does not recognize his value, because he knows his time is sacred, his energy is precious, and his destiny is greater than any moment of desperation. The essence of masculinity is respect, self-respect first, and then the respect it commands from others. A man who respects himself will never chase, because he knows his dignity is worth more than temporary comfort or fleeting validation. Masculine men disappear when they are not valued, not because they are afraid, but because they understand that to stay and chase would be to betray themselves. And betrayal of the self is the greatest weakness a man can display. Masculinity is not a loud force. It does not scream, it does not beg, it does not plead. Masculinity is quiet power. It is the steady hand, the firm ground, the consistent presence. It does not move for everything, but when it moves with weight. And when it disappears, that absence speaks louder than any words. This is the essence of masculinity, a force that does not chase what runs, because it does not need to. It stands, it remains, it holds its ground. Masculine men understand this truth deeply. They know that their strength is not in pursuit but in presence, not in proving but in being, not in clinging but in letting go. Masculine men do not chase, they disappear. Because disappearance for them is not loss, it is alignment, it is clarity, it is the full embodiment of who they are at their core. Anchored, disciplined, and untouchable chasing weakens a man because it shifts him out of his natural power and places him into a position of lack. At the heart of chasing is a silent confession: I am not enough as I am, I need something outside of me to make me whole. This unspoken belief immediately strips away dignity, strength, and respect. Masculine men understand this truth deeply, which is why they never fall into the trap of running after what pulls away. To chase is to abandon the self. It is to step outside of personal alignment and pour energy into something that is not meant to be held. The more a man chases, the further he drifts from his center. He stops leading and begins following. He stops being a force and becomes a shadow. Masculinity cannot thrive in that position. A man who chases has already given away his power, because the act itself declares that the other holds more value than he does. Chasing is rooted in fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing something that feels necessary. But masculine strength is never built on fear, it is built on certainty. Chasing creates an energy of desperation, and desperation is never attractive. It repels. It communicates imbalance, insecurity, and a lack of control. Masculine men do not allow fear to dictate their actions, because they know that fear-driven actions always lead to weakness. There is also a deeper reason why chasing weakens: it disrupts polarity. The masculine is designed to lead, to guide, to move with intention. When it chases, it becomes reactive instead of proactive. It no longer leads, it follows. And in following, it betrays its essence. Chasing flips the natural order of energy, turning the man into one who begs instead of one who decides. The moment this shift happens, respect is lost. Once respect is lost, attraction dies. Masculine men understand that chasing destroys the very thing they wish to preserve. Chasing also weakens a man because it blinds him to reality. When the desire to hold on becomes greater than the commitment to truth, a man begins to ignore the obvious signs. He overlooks the disrespect, dismisses the rejection, and justifies the lack of reciprocity. In chasing, he convinces himself that persistence will change the outcome, but masculine men know that persistence applied in the wrong direction is wasted energy. They refuse to chase because they see clearly that what runs is already signaling its misalignment. Energy is precious. Masculine men know this. Every chase is a leak, a draining of focus, discipline, and purpose. The more a man chases, the less he has for himself, the less he has for his vision, the less he has for the path he is meant to walk. A man who chases loses time, loses respect, and loses momentum. Masculine men protect their energy because they know it must be invested in growth, not wasted in desperation. Chasing also erodes self-respect. Each time a man runs after what does not want to stay, he is silently telling himself that his worth is negotiable. He is lowering his own standards. He is teaching himself that his boundaries can be broken. And once a man breaks his own boundaries, he cannot expect others to honor them. Masculine men never allow this cycle to take root. They know that self-respect is the foundation of all respect, and once it is compromised, everything else collapses. To chase is also to give away mystery. Masculine energy is most powerful when it remains centered, when it holds itself with composure and restraint. But chasing reveals too much. It exposes insecurity, it displays neediness, and it removes all curiosity. Masculine men know that their strength is not only in what they show, but also in what they withhold. Chasing strips away this power. Disappearing protects it. The truth is simple. Chasing weakens because it is not masculine. It is the act of a man disconnected from himself, living in reaction rather than in leadership. Masculine men refuse to live this way. They understand that to chase is to surrender, but to stand firm is to reign. Strength is not found in pursuit of what runs, it is found in the discipline to let it go. This is why masculine men never chase. They know it is the path to weakness, the path to loss, the path to self-betrayal. Instead, they disappear, and in disappearing they remain powerful, dignified, and aligned with their essence. Disappearance is often misunderstood. Many mistake it for silence born of weakness, avoidance, or surrender. But in truth, disappearance is one of the most powerful expressions of masculine strength. It is not running away, it is rising above. It is not abandonment, it is alignment. Masculine men disappear not because they have no words to speak, but because their silence speaks louder than any argument or chase ever could. When a man disappears, he is making a declaration. The declaration says, "My energy is sacred, my dignity is priceless, my worth is not up for negotiation." It is a quiet but unshakable message that nothing outside of him can control the way he values himself. Disappearance is a boundary, a firm line drawn not in anger but in self-respect. Masculine men do not waste their time convincing others of their value. They simply step away, and in doing so they let absence reveal the truth that words could never prove. The power of disappearance lies in its discipline. It takes little effort to chase. Anyone can run after what they fear losing. But it takes immense strength to hold back, to remain still, to withdraw completely. Masculine men master this discipline. They understand that energy must be guarded and directed with intention. Disappearance is not giving up, it is choosing not to waste. It is not about defeat, it is about focus. By disappearing, a man reclaims all the energy that chasing would have drained from him, and he reinvests it into his growth, his vision, and his purpose. Disappearance also shifts dynamics in a way that chasing never could. Presence, when forced, often goes unnoticed or unappreciated. But absence is undeniable. Absence creates reflection, it creates weight, it forces others to confront the space left behind. Masculine men understand this subtle law of energy. Sometimes the most powerful move is not in pressing forward, but in pulling away. Disappearance places the burden of awareness not on the man, but on the world around him. Yet the power of disappearance is not about control. It is not a tactic to manipulate others into noticing or regretting. It is much deeper than that. It is about self-mastery. A man who disappears does so because he refuses to remain where he is not valued. He disappears because he honors his own standard, his own dignity, his own mission. Whether others notice or not is irrelevant. What matters is that he remains aligned with his truth. Disappearance also has a cleansing effect. It clears the distractions. It removes the noise. It filters out the unworthy. By disappearing, a masculine man creates space for what is real, for what resonates with his energy, for what aligns with his path. Instead of clinging to what resists him, he creates room for what is meant to find him. That is the hidden power of disappearance. It does not only preserve dignity, it attracts alignment. There is a magnetic aura in the man who can disappear. People sense it. They may not always understand it, but they feel it. They sense the discipline it takes, the self-control it demands, the inner strength it reflects. Masculine men know that disappearance builds respect in a way that chasing never can. Chasing diminishes value, but disappearing amplifies it. It communicates clearly, I do not need to run after anything. I am enough where I stand. If you do not recognize it, then I will remove myself, and life will go on. The world often confuses stillness with passivity, but masculine stillness is active power. It is the refusal to move without purpose. Disappearance is the highest form of that power. It is the ultimate display of restraint and the clearest statement of self-respect. Masculine men know that disappearing does not close doors. It opens the right ones. It does not shrink their world. It expands it by eliminating what no longer serves them. This is the true power of disappearance. It is strength disguised as silence, dignity expressed through absence, and leadership demonstrated by walking away. Masculine men disappear not because they have no options, but because they understand that their energy is not an option for everyone to consume. They guard it fiercely, they preserve it fully, and when necessary, they vanish completely. For masculine men, disappearance is not an ending. It is a new beginning, one that leads to growth, alignment, and a deeper connection to themselves. That is why they never chase, they disappear. Because in disappearance, they rise. When the masculine chooses to disappear, something powerful happens. An energy shift takes place. It is not a small ripple, it is a transformation that changes the entire dynamic. Chasing creates noise, tension, and imbalance, but disappearance creates space, clarity, and weight. Masculine men understand this truth. Their absence can hold more power than their constant presence, and their silence can command more attention than their endless words. The energy shift begins within. When a man decides not to chase, he reclaims himself. The pull of desperation is broken, the drain of anxiety is cut off, and the endless cycle of proving stops. His energy, once scattered outward, is redirected inward. This inward redirection strengthens him. It gives him focus, discipline, and power. The shift is not about others noticing first. It is about him remembering who he is. Disappearance allows him to return to his center, where his confidence is unshakable and his value is undeniable. But the shift does not end there. Once a man withdraws, others begin to feel the weight of his absence. People may have overlooked his presence, taken it for granted, or even dismissed it entirely. Yet when he disappears, the silence speaks. The space left behind becomes undeniable. Questions arise. Curiosity builds. Respect begins to grow where once there was disregard. Masculine men know that sometimes the most powerful way to be heard is not to speak, but to vanish. This energy shift flips the balance of power. Chasing places all the weight in the other's hands. It gives them the control, the attention, the upper ground. But disappearing reclaims that balance. It communicates, I am not bound to you. I am not tied to your decisions. I am not defined by your validation. I move with or without you. This truth restores the man's strength. The one who was once reactive becomes sovereign again. The one who was once needy becomes independent. The dynamic shifts because the energy has shifted. This shift also affects attraction. Desperation repels, but discipline attracts. A man who disappears radiates self-respect, and self-respect is magnetic. It communicates that he does not beg, he does not settle, he does not break his boundaries. This kind of energy is rare, and rarity commands attention. By withdrawing, he becomes more visible. By disappearing, he becomes more significant. The paradox is clear. The less he chases, the more he is noticed. The less he seeks, the more he is valued. But masculine men do not disappear for recognition. They disappear for alignment. The energy shift is not about creating reaction. It is about creating clarity. When a man disappears, he filters out the noise. He no longer wastes time trying to convince or control. Instead, he allows reality to reveal itself. Those who were never meant to stay will fade completely. Those who truly align will remain or return. This shift saves him from endless struggle and keeps him on the path that is truly his. Another dimension of this energy shift is freedom. Chasing traps a man. It binds him to someone else's decisions, someone else's actions, someone else's approval. But disappearing cuts those ties. It liberates him from dependence, from fear, from the illusion that his worth is external. In disappearance, he breathes freely again. He remembers that he belongs to himself first, not to the fleeting desires or opinions of others. This is why masculine men treasure the power of disappearing. It transforms not only how others see them, but also how they see themselves. They understand that true respect is built not through pursuit, but through presence and absence used with wisdom. To remain when value is missing weakens. To disappear when dignity is challenged strengthens. This balance creates a man who is not only respected by others, but also deeply respected by himself. The energy shift is undeniable, from scattered to focused, from desperate to disciplined, from reactive to sovereign. Masculine men do not chase because they know the cost. Instead, they disappear because they know the reward. And the reward is always greater than the chase: respect, clarity, alignment, and power that cannot be shaken. Masculine men are defined by their boundaries. Boundaries are not walls built out of fear, they are gates built out of strength. They protect what is sacred and filter what is unworthy. A man without boundaries is a man without self-respect because he allows the world to decide how he should be treated. A man with boundaries, however, sends a clear message: this is where my value begins, and this is where your access ends. Masculine men do not compromise these lines. They honor them fully, and they expect the world to do the same. Chasing is the direct opposite of boundaries. It is the act of crossing one's own line, of abandoning self-respect in the hope of gaining approval. Each step of the chase is a step away from dignity. Masculine men recognize this danger. They know that to chase is to betray themselves, and betrayal of the self is the greatest weakness a man can display. That is why masculine men disappear instead of chase. They will not sacrifice respect for temporary affection. Boundaries are not about anger. They are not about punishment. They are about clarity. They communicate who you are and what you will allow into your life. Masculine men do not need to shout these boundaries because they live them. Their actions, their silence, and their disappearance speak louder than any words. When respect is missing, they do not argue. When value is denied, they do not beg. They walk away, and in walking away, they prove that their boundaries are not negotiable. Respect flows naturally from boundaries. People respect what is protected. They respect what is rare. They respect what refuses to lower itself. Masculine men know this. They understand that if they want the world to respect them, they must first respect themselves. Disappearing is an act of self-respect, and self-respect commands external respect. It creates an unspoken law: if you want access to me, you must meet me at the level of my standard. If not, you lose me entirely. Boundaries are also the foundation of trust. A man who keeps his own lines clear can be trusted by others because he will not waver, he will not bend, and he will not betray. But a man who chases shows that his boundaries are weak. He reveals that his standards can be broken when his emotions are stirred. Masculine men never allow this. They stand firm even when it is difficult, because they know their word means nothing if their boundaries mean nothing. Disappearance, then, becomes the ultimate enforcement of boundaries. It is not about manipulation or control, it is about integrity. It says, I refuse to remain where I am not valued. I refuse to accept less than what aligns with my worth. I refuse to dishonor myself by begging for what is not freely given. This kind of strength does not need validation, because it validates itself. The beauty of boundaries is that they create freedom. Without them, a man is tossed around by the demands, opinions, and expectations of others. With them, he is free to stand tall, to move with purpose, and to live in alignment with his values. Masculine men disappear when their boundaries are crossed because they refuse to live enslaved to disrespect. They choose freedom over approval, dignity over comfort, truth over illusion. Respect follows naturally. Even those who do not understand at first eventually come to realize the weight of a man who will not bend. The world cannot help but admire the man who honors himself. Masculine men know that respect is not demanded, it is earned. And it is earned by living with integrity, by upholding boundaries, and by disappearing when those boundaries are violated. This is why boundaries are not just lines, they are life. They are the essence of masculine strength. They are the frame that holds everything together. Without them, a man crumbles. With them, he becomes unshakable. Masculine men do not chase, because to chase is to erase the very boundaries that give them power. They disappear instead, because disappearing protects their respect, preserves their dignity, and ensures that they never betray themselves. A man's legacy is not written in how much he chased, but in how firmly he stood. Masculine men understand this truth deeply. They know that desperation leaves no mark of greatness, but discipline and dignity echo far beyond the present moment. To live as a man who never chases, but instead disappears, is to live with a legacy of strength, clarity, and self-mastery. Chasing may offer temporary gratification, but it creates no lasting respect. History does not remember those who begged, pleaded, or ran after what slipped through their fingers. History remembers those who carried themselves with honor, those who held their ground, those who valued themselves too much to lower their standards. A masculine man does not measure his life by what he managed to hold on to through pursuit. He measures it by how unshakably he walked his path, regardless of what left or stayed. Masculine legacy is built on dignity. Dignity is the unbroken thread that ties a man's present to his future. Without it, everything unravels. With it, everything strengthens. Each decision not to chase but to disappear reinforces that thread. It strengthens his character, sharpens his presence, and leaves behind a model for others to follow. His silence becomes wisdom. His discipline becomes memory. His refusal to bend becomes inspiration. Another part of this legacy is clarity. Masculine men are remembered for their decisiveness, for their ability to separate what serves them from what weakens them. They do not waste years running after what runs away, because they know that alignment cannot be forced. Their clarity is not just for themselves, it shapes the way others see them. A man who can disappear communicates a rare certainty. He is not afraid of loss. He is not controlled by fear. He will not betray his path for temporary comfort. That kind of clarity becomes legend because it is so uncommon. Legacy also requires mastery of self. The man who chases has lost control of his energy, his emotions, and his direction. But the man who disappears proves mastery. He shows that his emotions do not rule him, that his desires do not enslave him, and that his worth is not determined by others. Mastery is the highest form of respect a man can achieve, because it is the foundation for everything else. Discipline, consistency, focus, and vision. Masculine men disappear when necessary because they know self-mastery demands it. And in doing so, they build a legacy that inspires not by words, but by example. The masculine legacy is also one of mystery. Chasing reveals too much. It strips a man of his depth, but disappearing preserves it. It leaves questions unanswered, thoughts lingering, and respect intact. Mystery does not come from hiding, it comes from restraint. Masculine men know this. They understand that their power increases when they do not give all of themselves away to what does not value it. Their legacy is not of desperation, but of restraint. They are remembered not for what they clung to, but for what they walked away from. And perhaps the greatest aspect of this legacy is growth. A man who chases stays stuck. His world revolves around what runs from him. But a man who disappears moves forward. He invests his time in building, in creating, in becoming more. His disappearance is not an ending, it is a continuation of his mission. While others waste their lives in pursuit of validation, he builds a legacy that outlives him. This is why masculine men never chase. They cannot afford to waste their legacy on weakness. The masculine legacy is strength, dignity, clarity, mastery, mystery, and growth. It is the memory of a man who refused to compromise himself. It is the impact of a man who knew his value and never begged for recognition. It is the inspiration left behind when others realized he did not chase, he disappeared. And in disappearing, he became unforgettable. There comes a moment when a man must decide what kind of life he will live. Will he live chasing what runs from him, wasting his strength in desperation, or will he live with the discipline to disappear and the courage to honor his worth? This decision defines not just relationships, but identity. It defines legacy, it defines respect, and it defines the very essence of masculinity. If the desire to chase rises within, pause and reflect. Ask, what am I chasing? What am I proving? And at what cost? The cost of chasing is always greater than the reward. It drains energy, erodes dignity, and leaves a man weaker than he began. But the cost of disappearing is different. It is temporary discomfort in exchange for permanent strength. It is momentary silence in exchange for lasting respect. Masculine men understand this trade and they choose it every time. The call to action is simple, but it demands courage. Stop chasing. Stop giving your energy to what resists you. Stop proving yourself to what cannot see you. Stop betraying yourself in the name of approval. Instead, reclaim your energy, reclaim your dignity, reclaim your path. The world may try to convince you that persistence in chasing is a virtue, but persistence without alignment is foolishness. Masculine men do not waste their persistence, they channel it into their mission, their vision, their growth. Disappear when you are not valued. Disappear when your boundaries are tested. Disappear when respect is withheld. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to walk away. Walking away is not defeat, it is declaration. It declares, I know who I am. I know what I bring. And I will not lower myself to hold on to what does not align with me. That declaration is what transforms men into leaders, into legacies, into forces that cannot be ignored. This is not just about relationships, it is about life. Chasing can happen in many forms, chasing people, chasing validation, chasing approval. But in every form, it is the same weakness, the belief that something outside of you completes you. Masculine men rise above this illusion. They disappear from the chase and reappear in their purpose. They stop wasting energy on what slips away and start investing it into what cannot be taken from them, their growth, their mastery, their mission. Every man must choose. Some will continue chasing, and in chasing, they will continue losing themselves. But those who dare to disappear will discover something rare, peace. Peace that comes from no longer begging, peace that comes from no longer proving, peace that comes from knowing that their worth was never dependent on anyone else. In that peace, strength is born. In that peace, respect is secured. In that peace, a legacy is written. So take this call to action seriously. Do not chase. Disappear. Withdraw your energy from what drains it. Remove yourself from what does not honor it. Stand firm in your value even when it is not recognized. Because the truth is this, if you do not respect yourself enough to walk away, no one else will. Masculine men understand this law, and they live by it. That is why they rise above. That is why they are remembered. That is why they are powerful. The world does not need more men who chase. It needs more men who disappear. It needs men who know their worth, who honor their boundaries, who live with dignity. It needs men who can say with certainty, I will not run after what runs from me. I will not beg for what does not see me. I will not waste my life chasing. I will disappear, and in disappearing I will rise. Masculine men don't chase, they disappear.